this, but I'm thankful for Jim and what he did. And Jim kicked us off into a brand new series that we're doing called Sermon on the Mount. And I think all the campuses are teaching us a little bit different. Gary and I have been praying through this for a while, and we're teaching this series on the Beatitudes. And so we're really covering chapter 5, verses 3 through 12. And so it's pretty simple, pretty short, and you can grab a hold of those, Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 12, and you could read all of those daily pretty quickly and just reflect into them and kind of let them sit in. And Jim kicked us off last week talking about chapter 5, verse 3. I'm just going to be honest here. I haven't listened to Jim's message yet, and I feel bad about that, and I should. But I know a couple of things he said, and I have looked into some of his notes, but I don't know exactly. But this is really the first sermon that Jesus preaches. Like, Jesus gets into this space, and you think about where he's at, and he's starting to do a couple things in his ministry, and he gets up here into this moment, and he preaches this sermon, and he starts this, and he starts out, and he starts in this space with these few verses that we're talking about. Now, he gets into a lot of things that we talk about a ton around here. You've heard it said, but I say. You've heard it said, but I say. You've heard it said, but I say. And he works through how we view money, how we view relationships, how we view so many things that we dive into daily, but we get this chance here, and I think in these first few verses, and one of the reasons is really this first verse. And so you're kind of going to you got to hear a full message from Jim last week. I want to do a recap, and next week, Gary's going to actually be teaching verse 4. We're going to skip to verse 5 today, but Gary's going to be teaching that, and he's going to talk about this a little bit because it's so pivotal inside of understanding this rhythm. And so he has this verse that you're going to see up here that we talked about last week. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I know in the scheme of the world, by living in America, we don't fully understand like poor. We are not poor. By being in America, we are wealthy in the scheme of the world. But most of us, if not all of us, have some understanding of what it means to not have. And so we understand, like maybe you've been to a place where you can't afford the next meal. And if you haven't been, you've at least been in a place where like rent's maybe been tight, or, you know, when you think about wealthy, you think about people who can just immediately afford anything. So if your kids want Jordans, you don't have to ship them in on a boat from the other side of the country to get them for $20. You can go to the store and pay $350 for a pair of shoes. And like that may be a place where you're going, I couldn't do that. Travel ball would be hard for my family. Helping my kids take music lessons would be something I can't afford. See, we understand being poor in that space and in that understanding. And in America, again, we have it really, really good in comparison to how so many have it around the world. But the word poor in Greek translates to like beggar. You know, we talked about a few weeks ago in the Heaven series about the beggar, Lazarus, who was begging at the rich man's table, and he kind of kicked him away and he was fighting. And that's the level of what we're talking about here. It's this begging and trying to get and just needing. And Jim said last week that being poor in spirit is understanding that we don't possess the ability to live a life the Creator desires. Like, we don't possess the ability inside of us. Our life is 100% dependent upon Christ. But when we take this verse a lot of times, we want to flip it. And we want to say, blessed are the rich in spirit. Because that's how we kind of see things sometimes. Man, people who like love Jesus, it's rich, and blessed are the rich, and blessed are these that are well. And the struggle is that instead of gaining the kingdom, we have to flip this on its head, because the verse says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. But if we flip it and we say, blessed are the rich in spirit, we would dwell in a realm of darkness. This being poor in spirit is so important to us understanding that we are 100% reliant. Because when we flip this, it's what happens when we applaud independence, self-confidence, and pride instead of being poor in spirit. And so, as I mentioned, Gary's going to cover verse 4, and I'm super excited. Bless those who mourn, and we're going to dive into that. I was talking to Jim the other day, and not Jim's been a pastor longer than I have, and not that he needed me to, but before he was preaching, I was preaching this sermon to him, and I'm going, you know, we just came out of the Heaven series, and blessed is the kingdom of heaven. Like, think with heaven in mind. He said, I got it, Robert. I was a part of that sermon, that Heaven series as well. But he, you know, it was just this whole thing when we started to look at this. It's like, man, the kingdom of heaven. And so today we're going to dive into a verse in verse 5, and these things are so short. And it says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. The word meek or gentleness comes from the Greek word, and I'm going to butcher this with my redneck, praos, P-R-A-O-S. And it describes this necessary balance between using power and avoiding harshness. This balance between using power and avoiding harshness. See, when we hear the word meek or gentle, a lot of times we tend to think weak. And if you're like me, like I've even like used that word if someone's maybe timid or backwards, they're meek. But in typical Jesus form, you've heard it said, but I say. Jesus is using this word in an extremely different way and flips it on its head. And meekness is not timidity. Rather, it is a position of strength under control. It is an intentional surrender of our will and desires to the lordship of Christ. So strength under control. And I like to think about it this way. I enjoy going to a good circus. And I know those are much harder to find, and the circus has kind of gone away, and I don't love any bad things that happen to animals, but I love a circus, and I think they're fun. And part of the joy of the circus is you love seeing a person stick their head inside of a lion's mouth or under an elephant's foot. Or you love to see them stand in an arena of tigers that are just walking around them, and all they have is a whip and a locked door and a lot of people on the outside, and you're going, this could go badly very, very quickly. Enter Siegfried and Roy. I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's only so long until, it's the elephant's foot is much stronger than the person's head. The jaws of the lion can clamp down. I mean, there's young kids in the room. I'm trying to be less funny than I normally would be, sorry. So, but this whole thing is we kind of get here and we look at these animals and we go, man, what violence, what power. I didn't know this, but we are apparently becoming a bear sanctuary. We were apparently a bear sanctuary here in Unicoi County. And I was unaware of this until yesterday I got a text message that there was a bear running through the backyard at the YMCA. And I live in Johnson City, kind of close to the mall. And so I live in the middle of Johnson City, and we have a bear running through our neighborhood. And Melissa is always like, we should go get it. And I'm like, look, we have a 160-pound dog, and I love our dog. He's an Alaskan Malamute, and he's awesome. And for about a week, while this bear only weighs like 70 pounds more than him, this would be fun. But when the bear weighs 500 pounds, we have to either feed it or it will eat us. And I am not sure which way this is going to go and how it's going to play out. But the violence, as I said here kind of a second ago, the using power, avoiding harshness or meekness is a position of strength under control. Having a position of strength under control is the thing. And the balance is the strength under control. And that's why when they train these animals, they aren't stripped of their power. You think about that, that's part of what makes it exciting. It's what makes it exciting for them. They cannot go inside the animal and remove their power. They can't remove all of the power and all of the abilities they have. They can't remove the weight and the strength of the elephant. They can't remove the king of the jungle and his ferociousness as they put their head in there. They are hoping that for a brief moment that they have trained these animals to be controlled in certain circumstances. They're hoping that in this instant, they're trusting the training. They're trusting what they've done. They're trusting what they've seen happen for generation after generation after generation. That when they put their head in there, that what has been taught will be executed. And we have to have this desire to control our strengths personally and not let them control us. You see, meekness is not weakness. Uncontrolled passions, desires, and sins are weakness. It is meekness or gentleness that God blesses. And I just think that, and I think that might be on the screen up there. It's just meekness is not weakness. Uncontrolled passion, desires, and sin are weakness. And it's meekness or gentleness that God blesses. Jesus assures us that the meek will inherit the earth. This inheritance is not a temporary possession, but an eternal promise. It speaks of a renewed creation where God's righteousness and justice prevail. It reveals a future where the meek will enjoy the fullness of God's presence, ruling alongside him in his kingdom. Blessed are the meek, for they'll inherit the earth, a new heaven and a new earth. You know, we spent 3 weeks walking through this process, that heaven will come to earth. And the struggle and the tension a lot of times comes to this space of, but Robert, like this turn the other cheek thing, that really can't be what Jesus meant. But Robert, like Jesus went into a temple and started flipping tables and going nuts. But Robert, what about? And see, the thing is that a lot of times when we look at these moments and we look at these things, we look at these ideas, we're very rarely reflecting into other people. We're looking at, how do I protect myself? When we think about meekness, when we think about stepping back, we're going, yeah, you know, I can stand up. I can stand up for wrong. I can stand up for injustice. But we're very rarely going, I'm trying to defend the weak. It's more about defending ourselves. I love how this verse, and I don't have anything that says that what Jesus wrote here comes directly from this, that it's an exact reproduction. But I love this thought that from Psalms. We're going to look at 9 verses here as we jump into this. But Psalms 37, verses 1 through 9, say this here. It says, do not fret because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong. For like the grass, they will soon wither. Like green plants, they will soon die away. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Do not fret. It leads only to evil. For those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land, will dwell in the earth. Isn't that the struggle? You ever see somebody who just seems to be like things just go perfect for them? And you go, I'm twice as good of a human as they are. I work hard. I love my family well. I do all of these things, and they seem to just have success, and it just works, and it just plays out. And Scripture's just like, don't worry about it. Psalmist is saying, don't worry about it, don't engage in that. And look what he tells us to do. Trust in the Lord and do good. Take delight in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. These things, wait in the Lord. Be still. Sit in that space. When we start to try and understand what it means that the meek will inherit the earth, we want to go back to that Jesus thing there for a second when he was flipping tables. Jesus did. It's kind of a fun story. I'd like to have seen it. And he comes through and just, I'm picturing like WWE type stuff. Just throwing them everywhere, jumping through them, elbow drops, something. I'm just seeing crazy, like just flipping tables, fully angry at the situation. What was the situation, though? There was a group of people who were robbing, stealing, taking advantage of those who were showing up for the Passover, and they needed these things, and the people knew they needed them. It's kind of like when we can go to a convenience store and buy a Coke for $2, and we go to a ball game and it costs us $6. And Jesus said, not in my house. The struggle wasn't that the people were providing things, that the vendors were providing things that people needed. The struggle was the heart behind it. The struggle was why it was happening. And their approach was about them. And Jesus is saying this controlled power, as Jim talked about last week, 100%. 100%. Our life has to be in Jesus, dependent upon Jesus, relying on Jesus. When the meek will inherit the earth, it doesn't mean that we don't stand up for injustice. Think about what we read in Revelation, that the saints are sitting there looking down, saying, God, how much longer? How much longer will this injustice continue? When we talk about the people who have already passed away, that have already died, that are with Jesus now, and they're looking down into this, they're looking at Jesus, they're looking at God, and they're going, how much longer are you going to let this go on? That's the things we should be angry about. That's the things we need to get frustrated with. That's the things that maybe should cause us to flip some tables. But in the day-to-day, I think what most of us see is we're spending a lot of time trying to defend ourselves and not the cause of Jesus and not the needs of others. We talked about this there a few minutes ago. And kind of a, dads, you can be welcome. I did this sermon for you. It's going to be kind of a short day. The band's going to come back up here and things as we close up here and kind of wrap this up. But blessed are the meek. Blessed are the gentle. For they will inherit the earth. And when I think about this step and this process, when I think about what it means to view life in light of heaven, as we've talked about for 3 weeks here, to view life every day, to be meek and gentle. It's funny, I like literally, if you would have asked me and Gary a few weeks ago, we would have said we'd be teaching blessed are those who mourn on Father's Day, and maybe families would have liked for us to have done that. I have no clue. But to be a manly man and all this stuff, there's not a lot of meek and gentleness that typically, when we start to draw that character out, when we create that person on paper, very rarely are those character traits that we think, man, that's what a dad should have. That's what a man should have. And so dads, you definitely don't have to cry like I do every other week when they preach. You don't have to carry the emotions and the weights of this artist, creative person. But how do we take and be a touch more gentle? How do we be a touch more meek in our daily conversations, in our approach to our families, as we journey along the path with everything that we bump into with work and shopping and extracurricular things and all this stuff? Ladies, you're not off the hook in that. I think we all need to do it. I think, though, that we would say that those are character traits that females maybe possess a little more. As time continues to move, I think we see that, I feel like the internet didn't just flatten the world, it flattened genders as well. I mean, it's kind of, we all kind of struggle with things, like women struggle with things that used to men only struggle with. I think men struggle with things that typically would have been a female thing, and we see a little more of a cross and a divide. And so with that, I want to challenge you, and I want to challenge me. How do we step into this space? Because Jesus makes it very clear. It's not whoever ends with the most toys wins. It's not whoever is the biggest and baddest and meanest. It's not whoever's brave enough to stick their head in a lion. It's that the meek, the gentle, will inherit, journey, walk the earth, a new heaven, a new earth. And that requires us to intentionally make some different choices. Let me pray. God, thank you